Here's to being us and being able to talk freely.
Cheers.
Cheers. I guess the question that I just asked Allison is, how do we want to talk about bipolar? We've both been diagnosed, so we have that word to work with. But we know a lot of people who have not been diagnosed, who use other words. And so that's...
Or that word.
Or they use that word, yeah. Sometimes when it doesn't really fit, technically, if you're looking at it from the DSR point of view.
DSM?
DSM, whatever. She's younger than I am, so she can remember this crap.
Diagnostic statistics.
It's
that doesn't even sound
manual.
human.
It is manual,
It's
so it is
manual,
DSM.
yeah.
There we go. We forgot to set our things, so I've got my thing right here.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
We're just going to talk for 20 minutes
Yes.
on the topic of what it is to be bipolar and how we'd like to maybe redefine or recontextualize
Yes.
the experience.
Yes. Because we'll each say what we think it is at this point. What I think it is at this point is the way all humans are.
Yeah.
And the only way it becomes an issue is if there's disruption in a life and then it's not taken care of, it's not cared for. And then it becomes a dis-ease that is like an avalanche in your life. How's that?
It's, yeah,
My
that's
little
actually
poet mind's
perfect.
at work this morning.
My mind has been totally nature metaphored. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
was
where
a
I am.
volcano the other day and a
Yeah.
glacier. And
Yeah, I hear you.
it is, I think, I ever since the beginning, before I was diagnosed as bipolar, I was calling it leaky consciousness. You are,
Yeah.
your mind connects everything.
Yes.
And you experience the entire range of feeling and
Yes.
thought. It is being too much, but I think also, this is my thing, not so much hers. We both have very different perspectives a lot of the time, and we want to showcase that as always complementary and
Yes.
expanding.
Because we still
life
are able to
instead of-
understand each other.
Yeah,
We are
exactly.
able to speak with each other, and it's not that way in a lot of society for people like us. We are hidden in plain sight
Yeah.
unless we're actually living in the woods. And that's where the people who
And that's
have my
also-
degree are living, is
Yeah.
in the woods. Those are my actual people. Now, what I wanted to say, what did you say? You said you described it some way.
As leaky consciousness.
When my
It's not
boys were little,
contained to this
when my son
physical
was
vessel.
little, I told him some of us have thin walls.
Yep, that's what it is.
I called it thin walls.
And it does manifest as lack of boundaries a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Yeah, out in this merchant world.
Yeah, where it's very strict boundary. Okay, so Saturn just went into Pisces. Saturn is the planet
Thank you.
of structure, discipline, boundary, the father. And I feel that just as a species, we've gone through this massive phase of basically worship of the Saturnian way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the energy of that planet even wants to branch out. Saturn wants to be in Pisces now. Pisces is the planet of no boundaries, spirituality, all the woo-woo.
Saturn's tired of being so uptight.
Yes, exactly. So I actually think what everybody wants is a next level of structure. We want to incorporate more than just the four walls of the mind, the matrix. And that's what all these mental illnesses are. How can it be that everyone has a mental illness?
And can we put quotes around mental illnesses,
Exactly.
please?
Well, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, if everyone has a mental illness, then is it even mental illness? If it's the norm, then
It's
is
normal.
Exactly. It is our soul trying to burst through the confines of old ways that aren't working anymore.
Yeah.
And that's all I see it as. I don't see anybody as mentally ill. I see them as maybe unintegrated. They have a lot of things that they've never been able to talk about or process in a space of total acceptance
And understanding.
and unconditional love
Yeah.
and forgiveness.
And you know, it's really interesting because I think what happened is because of the ancient viruses that are now in our labs. And I read about that 7 years before anything happened. And I said to my husband then, oh, we know nothing bad will ever happen because people are so careful and perfect. You know,
Yeah.
so I know I'm not the only one. I saw this coming, this kind of thing. But what it did, because we had the internet, is it gave people the experience of being mentally ill. Because they were isolated.
You're talking about COVID, like just
Regular
the whole-
people,
Mhm.
yeah, the whole COVID thing. It gave other people the experience of how I lived all my life. In total isolation, and all they had was their emotional outbursts shooting out through Twitter, you know, and those kinds of things. So it was like the whole world became bipolar for a
Yeah.
while. That's why we believe this is going to be a very important
topic of discussion.
And that we have a lot to offer. It's like I told a lady in my favorite health food store the last time I was in there, I said, you know, now that I'm old, I've had to live this way all my life. I said, I'm like an athlete in mental illness.
She really is.
Because I made it to 68, and in my family, all the people like me died before they were 47. From diseases from the stress of this kind of thing, which are, if you don't know this, cancer, strokes, heart attacks, of course, being locked up because you are hearing other people, but regular people do that too. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm. It's just a suppressed
Yeah.
ability.
Yeah, it's a suppressed ability for sure.
Because it's unprovable. I understand.
Yeah.
But people don't accept anecdotal evidence. They don't accept a million people have experienced a near-death experience, but we can't get it diagrammed or documented in a way that proves it, so.
There are people doing that.
I know,
all over the world.
absolutely.
But they tend
the
to get
mainstream-
ignored. They've been doing this for a couple of hundred years at least.
Mhm.
And when they do it, it always gets suppressed because it isn't the popular notion of the time.
It's not
I want to talk about
popularity.
one of my favorite
It's
complaints, and that's Isaac Newton. Because I've read a lot of history about science. I'm not a scientist. I did not study science. I'm a poet and a musician, so I've got high math skills. So I like science. It's just not my first thing, you know. But I love the poetry of theoretical science, so I read a lot of that kind of stuff. And when I read the history of science and I got to Newton, and I found out that he invented calculus to try to prove that last piece of math that never falls into line, I went, they're just like religions.
Yes.
Science is just like religion.
It is.
You
Try to
postulate
fill in that
something,
last-
you make shit up, and then you say it's true and you try to prove it.
I've been referring to it as it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All science is a rabbit hole. You'll never reach that final step that proves
No.
everything, that the unified theory
Mm-hmm.
of existence it will never enclose the circle perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as a straight line or a perfect
Mhm.
circle because
That's right.
there has to be a little degree of, I call it fuck up.
Imperfection is what my grandmother called it.
Imperfection.
Imperfection. Nothing in
AKA
nature is perfect.
F up. Because you have to leave room for the spiral. That's how more is created.
Yeah.
So,
By disruption.
Uh-huh.
Disruption.
So
It's the opposing forces that are the great one.
that's why mental illness is that disruptor.
Oh
yeah. So Saturn was in
It certainly
Aquarius.
is.
March 2020, Saturn went into Aquarius, and that term, Saturn in Aquarius, can be translated literally to social lockdown. Like,
I like
Saturn is
that.
lockdown, Aquarius is society.
Yeah.
So now Saturn's I feel it's so huge. I'm wearing my Saturn earrings today, and they're actually
I didn't even notice.
they're
I
kind of
love
Jupiter
them.
colors. We didn't know we were gonna really film
They're
something
beautiful.
substantial, but I
Yeah.
feel like this is turning out
It
well.
might. Yeah.
I feel that Saturn is psyched to be in Pisces right now, and that they're working together. It's always been seen as something,
Oppositional forces.
yeah, but
That's a very Western
that
point of
is-
view.
ascension, this term that you hear in spiritual communities.
Yeah.
We're ascending into all opposites working together instead of in opposition.
In reality, in nature, they've always worked together. Society,
Has been operating
and
in low
let's say, and
consciousness.
I might even be a little bigoted and say, more Nordic society. Maybe not far Nordic, but kind of in the middle, you know, where people became white. They built up all of these materialistic structures, you know, and religions to make everything firm, and you know,
To control
yeah,
nature.
because it's uncontrollable. Any farmer or any sailor knows that.
And we want to be able to feel comfortable, like we have to reach an agreement with nature so that everybody survives. And I do think mankind, womankind, is like the arbiter of that. Like, we're not here to tame and master and control nature, but we are here to make it a peaceful situation for everybody, or just a good one. Like, we can still have violent sports if we want. I don't know, anything to help.
We're not here to judge what other people's realities are.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
That's what we're really.
Everything can coexist here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be speaking more in terms of like dimensions and things like that. And Rhonda's much more on the cultural side of things. She knows a lot about history and peoples. Where was I going with that?
Well, I think that's enough. That's okay. But I live in that other world. You know, I was trained in classically European, all the arts, because my people were new in the United States. And by the time I popped along, they were trying to retain their culture. So my parents became the Americans, and I didn't.
Yeah, we're all.
And I didn't understand that, and it's caused a lot of disruption in my life over the years because I had no idea that I was that I was so unlike other Americans.
Yeah, I
just
actually
didn't
have had the
understand.
same thing in my own way.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I still have yet to grasp that I am so different, because I am also so basic and simple, and like I can code switch easily, or I'm just silent in a lot of contexts. But yeah, we can't keep going through life believing that there's something wrong with us, because it's antithetical to life.
Just because you're different, that difference can be your greatest strength.
And
you know,
I
take that from a very old lady. That's the gift that I think that I have to give right
death
now.
at every turn.
Is the white hair and the wrinkles. You know, trust me.
Yeah, that's
You know.
one thing that society has actively tried to eliminate is the wisdom of older women. The word crone comes from the word crown, but they
She
made
called
it
me
into
the
an ugly
elect.
thing. Oh, I definitely have that. I'm an air sign. So
I know.
I
You were pointing at me, and here you are. And this is what this means.
I do words,
It's
not
wonderful.
culture.
Okay, there we go.
I'm more the Terrence McKenna, like, culture is not your friend type of person, but that's
And I'm the
needs a
person
lot of
who loves
elaboration.
ritual and culture. And,
yeah, I do love
in
it.
the woods.
It's just that, you know, it's like any person. Culture
Yeah.
is like the collective ego.
Yeah.
There's a dark side and there's a light side, and
Yeah.
anyway,
And they work together,
they do.
and it's hard for us to see that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very hard. You know?
Really, my aim is to have people have it in mind that they're trying to raise their consciousness from, let's say, the third dimension to just the fourth dimension. We don't have to talk about the fifth dimension, but I think having this simple numerical structure is very helpful. Like, it gives you a kind of mental goal, some kind of construct to work within. So the third dimension is all opposites clash, and here's right and here's wrong. And if you're not right, you're wrong. Like, if you're not in the
if
right
you're not
camp.
with me, you're against me.
Exactly.
Yep.
So enemies everywhere, which Jesus Christ talked about. Your enemy is your friend. Like, there's a lot of contradictory stuff in the Bible. All those paradoxes, like he comes with peace but also a sword, like those two ways of being have to coexist.
Well, Christ was speaking from a more Eastern point of view,
Yeah,
and the sword was metaphorical
yep,
to cut away what sin, and
wheat
sin
and the
was
chaff.
actually things that separated us from our source, from
Yeah.
from our from God. That's what Jesus was talking about. And I will say, I've read the Bible all my life, you know, and I was taught very differently than what's being said now about the Bible.
It's very
Very,
locked down.
very differently. We were taught to read it, that it was allegory and history, some history, a lot of allegory, and that even though it had been politically created as different versions of the Bible, which they still are, all of you out there need to know that. Every Bible that's in print is a political piece to some extent. What I was taught and what I still believe is that the truth can shine through if you're looking for it, just like it does in anything else. You know,
Yeah.
if I see a deer in the wood, I have a mystical moment because that's who I am. If I open the Bible up, I always have a mystical moment.
Me too.
But, you know, because that's who I am. You see what you are. And that's what they're calling
And
the mirror effect now.
Yes.
You see
yeah.
what you are.
And
know?
as you go through life with a document like the Bible, if
Mhm.
you know this thing really well,
Yeah.
then your perspective of it should change throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
You should have those mystical moments.
Yes.
But like the religious culture wants to keep everything the same. It wants you not to grow.
That's because it's turned into a tool of the merchant society.
Yeah. And that's a cult right there, is when you belong to an organization that doesn't want you to grow or change, or if you do, it's within their context. You just have to blindly believe those people, not your God, not your soul, not yourself. And it's dangerous. I
This
feel
is very
like
dangerous.
I need to promote the fact that it is dangerous to your soul.
I was also taught that just because you believed in God, I was a cradle German Lutheran, which is right next door to the Catholics. We weren't that far. Luther didn't want to start a new thing, you know. All he was focused on was the corruption of the church,
Yeah,
monetary
because
corruption.
he and people like us are looking at the Bible like, no, whatever you guys are doing, this is
But
not
it's
what
not
it says.
matching up, and it's not
There's-
matching up in the United States right now.
Mhm.
It's just not. That's just a
Yeah.
fact.
We're not supposed to cull from the Bible like shit to put on our coffee cups and little
Yeah,
Easter bunny and
that's
Christmas
no way to
trees
treat
and-
sacred things.
No, I mean we can have that. We can have the cutesy,
We can have the fun stuff,
lighthearted
and I'm
stuff,
all over it. I have
but
bunnies
it's not
everywhere.
Only that.
Yeah,
It is not
no,
only that.
no. My favorite part of the church year, my two favorite parts, are Advent, because it's supposed to be spent in silence, and I do every year, and I always have. And then the next one is Lent, which is also to be spent in silence and contemplation and preparation every year. And then we're ready to cut loose and be crazy in the summertime. That's what's natural for a human animal.
Yeah.
That's what's natural. And if you look at Ayurveda, if you look at Chinese medicine, if you look at things that have been taught from the Andes and all the places in the world, even back to Germany now, I'm reading things like that in Germany. It never got totally lost in Germany either, because there's always been this undertow in Germany of not liking that the Christians came in and took away their forest knowledge. I'll be talking about the real Grimm's fairy tales as we move along because of that.
I
But
mean, basically, it's all theft. Culture is
Oh,
all
yeah, it's
thieving
all
from
theft.
each other. You could say
we're
inspiring each other.
And we're artists, so
but-
that's what I've always said. Artists steal. Artists steal. I was raised hearing that phrase. Great writers write. No. Good writers write. Great writers steal. We steal from each other. We steal from ourselves. I steal from myself. I still
Yeah.
do. I'll cull through something and go, oh, that was really good. I can use it over here. Everybody does that. That's why there's a term pentimento for painters. They would paint over, because canvas is expensive,
Oh,
and artists have never been
yeah.
wealthy. They would paint the same thing in a better version over and over, trying to get it right. And pentimento is when the the paints from behind come up and you see the picture that was behind the picture on top. I've always loved that
I
term.
know. I like it too, yeah.
It's such a beautiful word, you know?
Isn't it messed up that, artists work their whole lives and then they die and people make millions off of them? It's really fucked up. It's a scam. I don't know. I don't envy overly rich people because nature hates surfeit. Nature does not like excess. And you can't be happy if you are living in excess.
Well, that's because it becomes all about the excess, and so there's no balance.
Exactly.
And so then you start making everybody. That's what we are. We're just creatures, and creatures under pressure make questionable decisions consistently.
Yep.
You know, and I don't think we need to name names, but there are powerful people in the world that now everybody is figuring out are not perfect, are not even wonderful. Some of them aren't even particularly good people, maybe. They need a lot of help. You know, but that's what happens is when you acquire a certain amount, if it's too much, it becomes about keeping that.
It turns into
And that's your
poison.
whole focus. And that does not promote growth anymore. The trickle-down effect that Mr. Reagan invented, because he had made a certain amount of money, because back then, after the whole shebang at the turn of the 19th and 20th century, when there were too many wealthy people, and then there was all this corruption and a possibility of, you know, people uprising and all that, they put some rules up so this couldn't happen. Mr. Reagan wanted to be able to make more money and not have to pay those horrendous taxes. And so that's why they created trickle-down economics. So that
Crafty jackrabbits.
crafty jackrabbits, indeed. You know, and I think that after 50 years, at least some of us can agree that's not the way nature works.
What we've agreed upon is we set the timer for 20 minutes and we just conclude right there.
Yep.
So
that's what we're
crafty
gonna do.
jackrabbits.
Because we are both manic bipolar and we don't want to go there.
Yeah, we've taken some time off in order to level out, and we feel very good about where we're at now.
And we want to stay
You
that
have
way.
to honor rest.
You do have to honor rest.
We can't produce 100% of the time.
Yeah.
We have to cut this off. Say one more word.
Rest.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yes,
Goodbye.
we'll be back.